Okay, so welcome to the next chapter, chapter 8. Okay, so chapter 8 is related to fraud and errors. So this is the first chapter, starting chapter for related topics on internal control. Okay, previously you had learned about the AIS in general. What is the AIS all about? Okay, so remember one of the function of AIS is to make sure the control and security measures for the system. So we start from the fraud and errors first in this chapter 8. Okay, so in this chapter we're going to have 5 learning objectives. The first one, explain the threat faced by the modern information system. The second learning objective, to define fraud. Okay, describe the different types of fraud, and also what are the auditor's responsibility to detect fraud. And then the third one, discuss who perpetrate fraud. Okay, and then we're going to see the why, okay, the perpetrators want to involve with the fraud, and why it occurs lah. Alright, and then define the computer fraud. The fourth one, discuss what are different type of fraud classification, and then the last one, explain how to prevent, detect computer fraud and abuse. Okay, and then first of all, to start this chapter 8, you need to read the integrative case, the first part of the chapter in Northwest Industry. So this is just want you to see how the real situation when in the companies they have they find out that ada fraud ataupun something wrong with their system. Okay, so refer to this case, Jason Scott, the internal auditor of the company. Okay, they have a red flag on the tax return. Okay, so they do investigate. Okay, and then they found out the Don Hopkins, the payroll programmer, may be involved in the fraud case here in the company. So from the case, the Jason, okay, anticipated some of the questions here. So questions that management that may be going to ask him related to the case. So first one, what constitutes a fraud? Okay, and is the withholding problem a fraud? So this is where we're going to see what's the in the things about the fraud lah, macam mana kita nak tahu what situation that we consider as a fraud and so on. Okay, and then how was the fraud perpetrated, and what motivated Don to commit it. So Don here is referred to the payroll programmer just now. Okay, and then the third question, why did the company not catch this mistake? Was there a breakdown in control? So maybe this is where related to the internal control of the company. Okay, and then how can the company detect and prevent the fraud? How vulnerable is the company's computer system to fraud? And the last, okay, only 5 questions here. Alright, so those are the questions that may be triggered out by the management that maybe Jason, okay, need to explain to the management related to this case in the integrative case Northwest Industries. Okay, so first learning objective here. Okay, we need to know the AIS threat. Okay, so in our situation now, most of the companies or our society itself has become increasingly dependent on accounting information system. Okay, maybe because of the system complexity, okay, and our dependence on the system, okay, companies face the growing risk of their system being compromised. Okay, so if you refer the textbook page 249, they give you some of the surveys had done in US. 67% of the companies had a security breaches. Okay, more than 45% were targeted by the organized crime. Okay, and 60% reported financial losses. The same case in Malaysia also. Okay, recently when comes into when we face on the MCO, okay, everybody depends on online buying and sebagainya. Okay, so that's also when we come across the cases whereby some of the customer being cheated by the sellers and sebagainya lah, gunakan data. Okay, and then data breaches, and then recent issues masa mula-mula MCU hari tu kan, semua everybody use the Zoom. Okay, and then ada isu related to Zoom yang curi data apa ni, customer dan sebagainya. So those are the things that we the threat. Okay, the threat actually to the companies, and also we ourselves that using the system. Okay, so actually they have 4 types of system threat. Okay, so these 4 types are 4 types of system threat. Here is threats to the companies that companies faces. Okay, so the first threat is the natural and disaster, political disaster. Okay, for example, fire, excessive heat, floods, earthquake, high winds, war. Okay, terrorist attack. Okay, so those are related to the natural and political disaster. Okay, for example, flood. Okay, that mostly kita punya apa ni, environment kan, selalu banjir kilat. Okay, and then company ada yang affected to that. Okay, and then during the 9/11 few years ago. Okay, that one more kepada terrorist attack. Okay, heavy rains, earthquakes. Okay, so those are the threat to the system. Okay, and then the second type is related to software errors and equipment malfunctions. So this more now losses. Okay, also due to the software bugs. Okay, hardware, software failure, software errors. Okay, operating system crashes, power outages, fluctuation. Okay, and also undetected data transmission error. So those are more related to the software errors and also equipment. So itu pun salah satu threat to the system juga. Okay, and to the company as a whole. And then the third one is unintentional acts. Okay, so this is more caused by the human carelessness. Okay, failure to follow the established procedures. Okay, poorly train or supervise the personnel. Okay, and then innocent error or omission, lost, destroyed or misplaced data. So the estimates about that human errors cause 80% of the security problem. So that's more related to the unintentional acts. Okay, and then please refer also the example given in the textbook. Okay, I will not go through one by one lah. So nanti bila you go through the chapters, please go through the example given. So at least you know, you can picture, gambarkan lah macam mana apa ni, those threat to the companies. And then intentional acts number 4. Okay, so this is more to actually the intentional acts, or other names called computer crimes. Okay, so this is the most frequent types of computer crime that we call fraud. Okay, so this is fraud is part of the intentional acts. Okay, so this is where the intent is to steal something of value. So it can be the form of sabotage, computer fraud as I mentioned tadi, misrepresentation, false use or unauthorized disclosure of data, misappropriation of asset, and financial statement fraud. Okay, so those are the related in the intentional acts. So the information system are increasingly vulnerable to at this attack. Okay, so if you refer table 8.1, okay, 8.1 also given the example related to these 4 types of system threat. Okay, so you can refer to the table 8.1. So actually the whole most of the topics, okay, in chapter 8, chapter 9 is related to these intentional acts or computer fraud. Okay. Okay, so we will discuss about it in detail later. Alright, so that's end of the learning objective 1. Alright, so we're going to continue on the next video untuk learning objective number 2. Okay, so I stop here.